Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have an update with Canterra Minerals Corporation, which is super exciting. They presented at our Atlantic Canada conference at the end of February, so it's been a couple months. The company went public just over 4 months ago on the TSXV under the ticker CTM. And with me today, I have Chris Pennimpede, who I hopefully said his name correctly today. I've been working on it. To give us an update. They put out drill results this morning on their Wilding project, which is right next to Marathon's Valentine Lake. So interested in getting his perspective on those results. Before we get started, as always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. You can find those on the company's presentation on their website, and there will be a Q&A section at the end. So feel free to input your Q&A throughout the presentation. We'll deal with them in the second half of the hour. With that out of the way, Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Thanks for having me, and glad to be back here with Adelaide presenting our story and our most recent developments.
Yeah, great timing too.
Yeah, great timing today with our first drill results and our first ever holes that Canterra's drilled on the project. So I'll take everyone through those, and the results still outstanding. And as we look towards our busy summer season, what that's going to look like for the rest of, say, 2021.
Great. For the sake of anyone joining us for the first time, maybe you can walk through a little bit of your background in the project and then get right into the update.
Yeah, absolutely. So myself, I'm a geologist by training. I've spent most of my career sort of working in the gold space, predominantly in Canadian North and Alaska and elsewhere. But more recently, I was VP Corp Development at Contact Gold before jumping at the chance to take on this project in Newfoundland and in probably what is the hottest jurisdiction for gold exploration right now in North America. And so in acquiring this project, as Deb said just before Christmas 2020. We sort of hit the ground running with permitting and getting out drilling in the winter window, which is basically up until April. So the results that we reported today are the first part of our 4-week drill program that basically took place during the month of March. And so we still have 9 holes to come out from that we should expect in the next sort of few weeks. So I'll take you through where the project is here in central Newfoundland, right next to, of course, Marathon Gold's Valentine Lake project, which is ever evolving, and talk a little bit about the setting before diving into the details of the results today. So before I get there, there's been, since I last presented here with Adelaide, there's been some developments on the team front. Of course, we first added Josh Surface as a director who's well known in the industry and brings some youth and exuberance to the team and certainly has done great things with both Integra Gold and now as executive vice president of Integra Resources. Critically, we've had a lot of technical firepower added to the team with our vice president of exploration, Asa East. Asa comes from Kinross and was the director of exploration there at the time he left. But what he really brings to the team is that worldwide gold experience. He's worked in gold belts from Russia to Ghana and everywhere between. And critically, he's worked in a lot of orogenic gold settings, which is what we have at our Wilding project and what encompasses most of the deposits and occurrences in the central part of Newfoundland. So he brings that sort of belt scale targeting brain that I think is so critical for a project like ours, since it does cover a lot of the main orogenic structural corridor that runs through central part of Newfoundland. Locally, we also have hired Dave Evans as our exploration manager. Dave is native to the island of Newfoundland and spent some of his career as a government geologist there and elsewhere in the world, but living an hour and a half from the project and help making the initial discoveries there. He's great to have that local knowledge and broader island knowledge to support our technical endeavors on the island. As you guys all know, probably from my last presentation, Randy Turner founded Canterra. It actually is a spin out of Windspear diamonds from way back when Snap Lake diamond mine was discovered up north and sold to De Beers. So this is actually the spin out of that company, and it survived as a diamond explorer for almost 2 decades before this deal came along, and we're back exploring in Newfoundland for gold now. So before I jump into the project, I'll just update this part of it since it's sort of topical, I guess, today, and to give an update on our cash position after the winter drill program. So we started this at close in December with 3.9 million in the bank. 2.7 million of that was flow-through dollars, so that's to be spent here in 2021 on exploration on our projects in central Newfoundland. So of that, we're basically at 3.3 now, with 2.4 million of that flow through for the summer. So that gives us lots of runway in summer to drill, anywhere up to at least 5,000 meters, with a pretty robust summer program that includes soil sampling, till sampling, trenching, and other sort of generative work that'll go into sort of looking at the broader belt and the earlier stage assets we have as they trend away from Marathon's ground to the northeast. Our market cap today is roughly around 14 million. So we're still sort of in the smaller end of things, which probably represents that we are still an early stage explorer and ultimately a drill play at this stage. And the shareholder base there on the right in the pie chart is largely unchanged, pardon me, and anchored really by the high net worth box there, or part of the pie chart rather, and Michael Gentili, who owns around 18%, and some other folks in there, which bring that almost to 40% of the shares outstanding. So before I leave the slide, I guess by way of getting this project, Altius had it, Altius Minerals, the royalty generator, and so they dealt this project to Canterra, and by way of that transaction, that's how they end up with their 8% there. All right, so setting the stage again here, this will be not new for most of you, but Newfoundland's obviously a hot place for gold exploration and other exploration at the moment, but specifically gold has taken off, and this is more or less sort of the major companies working on the island right now. So there's a lot of them, and certainly the main ones there in the center part of the island, Marathon and their Valentine Lake deposits, Matador and their Cape Ray down to the southwest. True Precious is just done a deal with Altius for ground sort of between those two projects. And then our project in the blue, the Wilding project and the Noah Paul blocks, which trend to the northeast from Marathon's ground. And so really, you can see these elongated claims that sort of ribbon their way from the southwest to northeast, including our ground, through the central part of the island. And these really encompass a structural corridor that seems to be responsible for all the deposits and occurrences that have been found throughout this region. This structural corridor, it's called many names, the Rogerson Lake Corridor or the Valentine Lake Shear Zone locally. But anyway, it's an orogenic style system. It's not dissimilar to the same structural framework you get in say the Abitibi or Red Lake or any of the other Archean greenstone belts around the world, the Birimian in Ghana. It's just younger in age, but a lot of the same processes here seem to be causing gold deposits to be formed proximal to this primary fault zone as it trends through the island. All right, so diving into the projects now and the local scale. So our claims here are in blue, and since I think last time I presented here at Adelaide, we had expanded the property position significantly, basically doubling it in size from when we initially acquired the project, and really that was to cover as much of that Valentine Lake Shear Zone or that structural corridor as we could as it trends to the northeast. Within all the orogenic systems like this in the world, the major gold deposits always, in 90% of the cases, fall sort of within a kilometer or two from the trace of that major structure. So having as much of that belt to play with was very important to us, and so thus the reason for staking a lot more ground as soon as we set off. Along that same line of thinking, a couple of weeks ago, we did a deal to acquire an option on the East Alder project, which is a small block, just totaling 7.5 square kilometers, right off the eastern flank of our Wilding project. But it's obviously a very strategic block, as it's the natural extension of that Valentine Lake shear zone, and has some pretty good grades in rock samples and in soils, and is sort of the natural extension of everything we've so far found on the Wilding project. So again, this area is all road access from Millertown and Buckins. It's a great place to work. It's cheap drilling in winter or summer. Really, you only have to take April off here to let the ground sort of thaw, or not thaw, well, in some cases thaw out, but really dry up. But really, you can work year round. I'm going to quickly touch on in this presentation the recent developments at Marathon, since it is topical for us, and they've made some big strides in the last month on their project. So last time I presented this Marathon was, just over, say, 4 million ounces, or just shy of 4 million ounces, depending on which columns you decide to put into that. And the big news last week was that the Berry Zone, that was a new discovery they made in sort of 2020, had really moved into the deposit, and they published a maiden resource to back that up. It came out sort of larger than I think most people expected, and pretty close to what I expected. But they're now almost 5 million ounces, and I think that's one of the big reasons that I chased this Wilding project that's here in the purple off to the east part of the slide. Is that this project clearly has the setting to get to 5 million ounces plus, which is what every major miner is looking for in terms of runway in ounces and mine life these days. And I think it'll just keep growing as they continue to increase their drill density, particularly at Berry and some of the other zones near Berry. So all good signs for us, given we're in the same structural and geological setting there as that Valentine Lake shear zone, which is the dotted line here, trends off to the northeast through the central part of the Wilding project. All right, so diving into the heart of the Wilding project, and we're going to focus on Wilding today because the Noel Paul block's much earlier stage, and Wilding's where we focused our 2021 winter drilling. But we're going to step back first and look at what we had to start with, and then talk about where we focused our short drill program here. So in 2017, another operator was working this project and came in and drilled the first holes that had ever been drilled in the project, and made 3 new discoveries in 3 different host rocks at the Elm, Alder, and Red Ochre zones. That's a great starting point for any never before drilled project. It's pretty rare you can come into a project and drill in 3 different areas and hit both high grades and disseminated style gold mineralization. And so this gave us a good starting point to come in here in 2021 and really try to offset 2 of those zones, as that's basically what we had time to do in our short winter window once we had acquired the project, permitted it, and got out and drilled. So we focused on Red Ochre and Elm, and I'm going to take you through those results. But before I get there, this slide puts into context the option agreement we did with Sokoman Minerals just last week, and you can see that the trace of the Valentine Lake shear zone here in teal continues through that ground, and certainly the same geology that hosts the Red Ochre continues there, and there's sort of abundant golden soil anomalies and particularly high-grade rock samples up to 5 grams per ton that seem to indicate that there's nothing really stopping the gold mineralization associated with this shear zone in that northeast direction. So this ground is permitted to drill this summer, and we'll add it to our summer drill program and other surface work. All right, so looking at the holes in detail before I show the results from this morning, we started at red ochre, and really what we wanted to do here was extend the discovery hole. So we drilled sort of 40 to 50 meters both east and west of that hole, hoping to not kill it and be able to point towards that it's more than just one hole, and this is a discrete zone that you know, can continue to be built out, and so we were successful in doing that. But then we also wanted to take some more educated risks and step out further, both east and west, with some fairly substantial step outs, especially here to the west, just to see if gold mineralization continued in the same sort of geological and structural setting. And we did that also to the east here. And really the goal for me here was that, you know, there's lots of gold anomalies in the soil. There was at least gold in one hole from the 2017 drilling that pointed to more of a disseminated style target, which is very interesting to me in finding sort of that bulk tonnage open pittable deposit eventually. So, you know, we really focused on this area to see if we could put together gold mineralization over a broad area, which would then give us our summer program a chance to really focus in and find where we might have bigger blowouts and better widths and grades. After we finished drilling at red ochre, we moved the rig to Elm, and Elm's where we saw those high grades within the Rogerson Lake conglomerate in the 2017 drilling. So there is much the same story at red ochre. We were fairly aggressive in stepping out east and west. What we wanted to do was target the strike extension of what we knew to be this parallel or sub-parallel vein to the Valentine Lake shear zone. So we stepped out sort of 250 meters east and west, and then also stepped back to test the down dip extent. And really, so we wanted to see if this vein had some real strike extension to it. And then also we drilled a couple holes oriented to the northeast to see if the extensional veins, which run perpendicular in the north-south direction, stacked, and that's really what gives Marathon its bulk tonnage and its size. And so those have been identified in the trench mapping, but never drilled at. So we did drill one hole in that orientation, and so we look forward to the results from those to come out. And then finally, we drilled two holes at a brand new zone in Dogberry, which is basically right on the trace of the shear zone. The Dogberry was basically a failed trench where there's high grade quartz veins sort of as far as the excavator could dig down, up to around 30 grams per ton. So it represented a good opportunity for us to put the first holes into a brand new target and hopefully make a new discovery. So those were the last holes drilled. Of the 16 we drilled, just over 2,300 meters. And so we'll look forward to the results of those as well. All right, so zooming into red ochre now. And so the highlight hole this morning, 33 meters of half a gram, including 11 meters of a gram, came from hole 33 here. So just a 40 odd meter step out to the west from the discovery holes. And really the mineralization here, and as well as the alteration, looks the same. You're getting complete magnetite destruction within feldspar porphyry volcanics. These are Silurian volcanics. So really this target from the geophysics side is it's good. It's easy to target, I guess, in that you see a lot of mag destructive features within the magnetics. And that's what these step out holes were pointed at. So, you know, we hit gold in every hole except for one along this 700 meter trend. And we also saw high grades, which were previously not identified within this red ochre area. Most of it was disseminated style gold mineralization or sort of spotty gold mineralization. But we hit, you know, almost 0.2 meters of 8 grams. So, you know, to me, this is is a great sign that there's a lot of smoke, but the analogy is no fire yet. Certainly, this gold mineralization seems to be widespread, and I think with further work this summer and reprocessing some of the magnetics products, I think we can better target here and hopefully find areas where we get bigger blowouts in the gold mineralization, and we can see sort of bigger widths within this good volcanic host. So looking towards summer, we have a substantial budget for summer, and we're going to focus on sort of two different things, and they'll happen sort of in concert with each other. And really, the first step here is to go back and do more surface work. There's a reasonable data set that covers sort of the eastern part of the Wilding project, but really nothing on the western side of the project towards Marathon's ground. And so there's really no reason the geology and the structure that caused the elm, alder, and red ochre zones can't continue to the west. So really the recon and till sampling work will start in earnest May 15th, and we'll start working on that western side of the project. And hopefully that'll give us some new targets to drill at by the end of the summer. But before that, we're gonna do a shorter drill program starting June 1st, where we'll do half of that 5,000 meterage, and that'll focus on drilling the targets we didn't get to in winter due to the tight time frame. So we'll focus on the Alder area, the deeper mag target, which is the Valentine Lake intrusive we have on the project, and some of the other targets of red ochre we didn't get to. And then also, if there's follow-up drilling to do at Elm and Dogberry, then we'll certainly do that depending on how the results come back from that. So really, it'll be a big program on Wilding, particularly on the western side for generative work, and then drilling sort of on the eastern side on the targets we didn't get to this year. And then at the end of the summer / early fall, we'll look to hopefully drill at some new targets we've generated from the surface work. And so looking at the broader property package and sort of looking specifically at areas where we've seen less work or less systematic work yet, what we're going to do with the surface work is employ a few techniques that haven't been done yet, particularly with backpack drilling, so top of bedrock sampling with a little sort of ice auger-like thing that drills down through the cover to give us a better sense of the underlying geology. And the reason for this is again, I've plotted up the trace of this conglomerate unit, the Rogerson Lake conglomerate. We should expect all the gold deposits here to sort of occur within a kilometer of that conglomerate. So by doing lines of top of bedrock, sampling across the corridor that we have staked, we can get a good sense of the underlying geology, alteration, and potentially mineralization. And that's backed up with the surface sampling, so your soil or till work, particularly focused on that western extent, but then doing earlier stage work in hopefully generating targets on our Noel Paul block. And so really we're looking at belt scale targeting here, stepping back and determining where the best place for a Valentine Lake type of deposit will exist on our project. And we'll do that by fingerprinting first the known gold mineralization we have within the red ochre, alder, and elm areas, and then extend that out and look for similar occurrences across the project. So there'll be certainly a broader approach to this, as well as more focused work with the drilling we have planned in the central part of the Wilding block. So, to look towards where we are right now, we've now drilled in combination with the previous drilling 5,000 meters on the project, and we've hit or the previous operators hit that critical 50 gram meters that you look for to say you probably have a project of merit, and there's probably some substantial gold system on the project. So really now, with the results that are coming in from the first round of drilling and looking towards the next round, we'll look to put one of these zones together, and hopefully one of them will hang together in a meaningful way that we can say we have something that will push towards a resource down the line. All right, and talking about the immediate catalysts, we've started to report the winter drill results. Now we still have 9 remaining from Elm and Dogberry, 9 holes rather. We'll also have the results from the archive soils. So those are soil samples that have been sitting in a warehouse for over 4 years. And those are really focused around the southern part of red ochre, the extension of the same geology. So hopefully there's some joy out of those that continue to point towards the red ochre area being well endowed with gold mineralization, and that it's a quite expansive target as we think it is. So we hope to see those very soon. And ultimately the kickoff of the summer program in mid-May, with drilling starting in early June, which will provide obviously drill news flow throughout the summer, and also other news flow from our surface work. So really a catalyst-rich summer, and then ultimately, drilling start up again in fall, which will give us drill results sort of towards the end of 2021. So lots yet on the horizon in terms of the results, and then the kickoff of the summer season. So it's going to be very busy for us here at Canterra, and we're looking forward to the rest of the winter drill results. And so with that, I think that's about all I wanted to cover in today's update. So thank you everyone for your time, and if there's any questions, I'm absolutely happy to answer those.
No, that was a really thorough update, Chris. Thank you. And congrats on the recent acquisition and the results. So I have one question. You're starting your drill program June 1st, and I am not totally clear on how long you can drill into the fall.
That's a good question, Deb. You can basically drill all the way through to and including Christmas. There might be a few periods in there where it gets a bit more challenging as the snow really starts to set in. But this year was a later winter, so like the snow, of course, didn't start coming until we started drilling, as it always does. But it didn't snow very much, so it wasn't really an issue. So really, it's just that April month that can be tricky, and there's ways around that, but it makes sense to let results come back and then come back with the drill. So we have budget enough to do 5,000 meters, so those 2 phases, and then anything beyond that will be predicated on success from those programs.
Okay, and then I have one other question, and it's me not being a geologist and have only done site visits in really nice weather conditions for the most part. So I would assume that there's significant challenges in the winter drilling, obviously weather, et cetera. But when you look at comparing your winter program to the summer program, I'm sure there's a lot of benefits of drilling in the summer. Can you maybe outline some of them?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and something that not everyone considers all the time. But summer, depending on where you are, can be difficult. But for us, it is easier. It's dry. There's no snow to contend with, so we don't have to plow roads, and so everything's just that much easier, and so much more of the time is devoted just to drilling, and there's no weather delays. So summer is really where you see the ultra cheap meterage being done. But also for us in winter, it's not that bad. And this winter was we were fortunate and sort of unfortunate in that it was very mild. So normally expect a lot of snow buildup, and so you can bury water lines and they don't freeze. But this year it didn't get cold enough, and they didn't get enough snow to even bury the water lines, but luckily it wasn't cold enough for them to freeze. So it's been a funny weather year, I guess. But certainly, yeah, you're right. Summer is the preferred time to drill. But in this part of Newfoundland, you're fortunate, and you can basically do it year round in a cost-effective way.
It's not just the weather that's been funny this year, Chris. There's a lot of funny things this year. Okay, well, that makes sense. I guess the other question I would have is just around lab result turnaround times. I know it's really hard to predict, and there's been delays. Like you said, you could take a break in April. and synthesize the information that you have, wait for your results, and come up with a plan for June 1st. How do you intend on handling a longer drilling period when you may not have the results back to help you formulate your ongoing plans?
Yeah, it's a good question, and certainly in much of North America, everyone's struggling and having to delay the restart of drilling because they just don't have results. Fortunately, there's one lab on the island of Newfoundland, and given it's the most sort of one of the more explored places right now, they are very busy, but the turnaround's been pretty good, sort of like 4-ish weeks, maybe a bit more. So that's workable, and so we would expect on that basis to have all the results in time for the June kickoff for the next drill program. Certainly, summer is going to get busier for them with the influx of surface work, particularly soil sampling that will be going on. So we'll work with that, and maybe that means the fall or the late summer, early fall drill program gets delayed a bit because we need time for all the assays to come back. But they seem to be doing a good job on the island with the independent lab there versus what delays people are seeing elsewhere in North America. So yeah, I guess to answer the question, like it's perfectly manageable, and we'll just see how we track with the surface work and the June drilling and how that allows us or pushes our drill program sort of in late summer, early fall.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in terms of labor, how are you doing securing labor for the upcoming program? Do you view that as a potential challenge?
Certainly it is. Thankfully the island is a very familiar place for mining and oil and gas exploration. So there's a lot of talented labor, and I guess sort of the benefit, if there is one, of the pandemic is less people are traveling and some other industries have closed. So there is some availability of people, and of course I moved very quickly to lock down our exploration manager and then make sure we have everyone for the summer. So we're fine. We have a good team lined up, and we've kept everyone from the winter drill program. So we're in a good place where we have everyone we need, and the drilling's all lined up. So thankfully we won't be scrambling for people and drills as the summer progresses.
Understood. And you mentioned you have some soil samples at the lab. When do you expect those to be back?
I would expect in the next sort of week to week and a half. Soils always take a bit longer to process because of the sieving and other things they have to do. So yeah, I hope for those very soon.
Okay, great. And then I have a question for the audience, which is, what is your biggest learn from your initial program?
Well, sorry, what was my biggest learn?
Yeah, what did you learn in the initial program that you think is valuable?
I think the biggest thing that we've learned so far, I guess, which is just from the red ochre zone, is that the gold here is definitely related to, at least in this felsic volcanics, to magnetite destruction. We were able to confirm that both visually and using taking magnetic susceptibility readings, and that'll be key for our targeting in summer. So I think we can go back and really spend more time reprocessing the magnetic data we have, because we have a very good data set in that regard, and combining that with the soil results that are going to come back, and hopefully that'll generate some pretty obvious drill targets for us. So I think making that clear establishment to what the gold mineralization is associated with the red ochre is the biggest thing we've learned so far, and how that will inform our targeting going forward.
Okay, and then for your upcoming drill program, what would you want to see to determine it as a success?
That's a good question. So, I think, we have to have success at one of the other zones that hasn't been drilled, to point towards that we have continued encouragement on this project, and that there's a reason for continuing on. And then, really, I think we need to continue to make a new discovery with that next program. So, we're going to point some holes at some fairly conceptual targets based on everything we know from the ice flow directions and the magnetics and what our neighbors are seeing, and hopefully, go big or go home in terms of really targeting sort of the bigger scale picture, and trying to establish whether there is a sizable mineral system on this project or not in very quickly.
Okay. Well, looking forward to those results, looking forward to the results pending and the upcoming drill program. Let's take a step back and look at the regional play. It's still early days, but do you expect to see consolidation in the area? And how do you think that plays out? I mean, some of the players that in the region have really high share prices, some less so. Do you think that it's going to be consolidation of some of the existing players, or do you think that some of the larger mining companies are going to come in? Like, what do you think happens?
I think consolidation always seems to come later. I think I've said this before, but you can look back to Yukon last cycle where there was a similar staking rush and everyone doing all sorts of things, hundreds of thousands of soil samples, drilling everywhere, and ultimately there was consolidation as companies sort of were beleaguered or cash poor, or some cash rich, and some had teams, some didn't. So there's always consolidation that tends to happen towards the end of these things as companies struggle to raise money or maybe they strike out with their projects. But certainly someone coming in and doing something with Marathon or one of the other projects would be a big impetus probably for more activity or consolidation. Again, you've seen that in other regions when one major miner jumps in, the others seem to follow, sort of like a FOMO thing. So potentially that could happen. Certainly Marathon is probably the best project I can think of that has above a gram per ton open pit in a safe jurisdiction with no serious red flags, in my opinion. So I expect to see some action there, but I think we're still early ultimately in this cycle, and especially in gold exploration in Newfoundland, to see real consolidation at this phase, as most companies have quite strong treasuries. Some of them, as you point out, may want to leverage their market cap to make some acquisitions where it makes sense. If they think they can further strengthen their property position, and I thought maybe you'd see that with the Hope Brook deposit that was sort of the last standing deposit on the island that hadn't been part of a transaction. But that went to a new group, so you're still not seeing that. You're not seeing that internal acquisitions phase, consolidation phase, if you will, yet. But it will come eventually, I'm sure.
And then for Canterra specifically, you made a small acquisition over the past couple of weeks. Are there other areas that you're looking at, other regions, or are there other deposits or properties in close proximity that you would add on? Would you look elsewhere on the island? Maybe you can give us an idea of your strategy when it comes to looking at potential assets.
Yeah. So we've been looking all over the island, and certainly, obviously, our first and highest priority focus was getting as much proximal to our claims as possible, as long as they were in places we thought had strong geological reason for going after, and there's still, I think, a few of those opportunities, and some open ground that is currently being held back by the government that will come open for staking. So that's sort of another critical piece we're waiting on. But we've evaluated lots of projects and haven't identified yet one that we really like enough to chase. But we'll continue doing that as we go along here. And I'm interested in finding deposits, so we'll look to anything on the island, and if there's a strong geological reason to do so, then to go after it, then we'll do that and leverage our team and our experience to really make a go of something like that.
All right. I have one more question relating to Marathon, which is how is the EIS permitting situation at Marathon? Is there local opposition? Maybe you can just speak to mining generally in the province.
Yeah, I won't talk Marathon's book too much because I don't know it as in and out obviously as they do. So everything I've read, it all looks very positive, and Newfoundland's unique in its stakeholders. It's really just the communities nearby. So Millertown for us and Buckins. So there's really you're just making sure that the towns are informed with going on, and there hasn't been any red flags to any of Marathon's work as far as I'm aware, as it ticks along. So everything seems to be on track, and it seems relatively painless compared to other parts of Canada. It certainly helps. The government of Newfoundland stated publicly they want to see 5 mines in the next 10 years, and I think that was a few years back. So they're definitely pro mining at this phase, and I think they're doing everything they can to support that process.
I think a lot of provinces and jurisdictions around the world are going to be looking for any economic drivers in the coming years, which I think bodes well for mining. I guess we just have one last series of questions, Chris. So you are funded for your next program, but obviously as a junior mining company, you're going to have to think about financing in the future. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the person who asked is correct. As a junior explorer miner, we're always, once a year, more or less, you can pretty much count on that we have to raise money to support the business and the exploration going forward. So, we were fortunate and we've appreciated a lot since we went public. Took a bit off today, but that's sort of to be expected. But you always want to, if you can, raise at higher and higher prices. And so if the results come back with a lot of joy and gives me reason to expand the program substantially, then I'll look to market to do that. And so it'd really be driven on results and ultimately our share price and ensuring that we just continue to sort of build value by being able to raise at higher and higher prices. So as the viewer pointed out, we're good for now and good for our program this year, but we'll see how we tick along after our final results here and into summer and see if there's reason to expand our program and therefore raise more money.
I want to touch a little bit on the trading action today because, stock is down a significant amount. But as we spoke before the call, the share price has done phenomenally well out of the gate, and your hold for your 4-month paper just came off last week, correct?
That's right. Yeah, last Monday.
So I think that what we're seeing is a lot of opportunistic selling, and I actually think it's a really interesting entry point. I will be buying stock. I waited until after this webinar because I didn't want to front run all my lovely investors. But I think given what you've got in front of you and, I think it's an interesting time to be purchasing shares. But I don't know if you can comment or add color a little bit to what I said. Maybe you can tell us what last financing at, and I know the stock hit a 50-cent high and it's sort of filled in from there, but yeah, sorry, that's not a question, it's just verbal diarrhea. You can respond as you wish.
Yeah, so I'll pull this slide up to give me a bit of frame of reference. So when we did the deal and the concurrent raise with that deal, that was all done at there's 12 cents was basically the price, depending if you did the flow through or the unit part of it. And so roughly 40 million shares of this 52 million came out of that. So, a substantial part of our outstanding was all on hold until April 19th, as you pointed out. So, that date, I expected to see some selling. Everyone was up, at that time, like almost 4 times. So, you expect people to be a bit opportunistic, and even if they believe in the story, it's hard to turn down gains. So we didn't see that ultimately. We kind of just tracked along, and so I guess most people were waiting to see, if we'd hit some gigantic discovery in this fairly conservative small first round of drilling. And I guess I just want to reiterate, like, it is early days. It is our sort of, it was a very brief first pass on sort of just two out of the four main zones. So, I guess I'm quite happy with the results as they confirm the type of mineralization that existed and expanded upon it. We have our work cut out to make that big sort of discovery that would be in line with some of Marathon's holes. So, I think people were waiting to see that, and when it was sort of more of the same, so interesting and gives us, the results give us a good runway for the summer, but they'll take some risk off the table, and so that happens. But we bounced around so much after close from the 30s to, as you said, the 50s, just because there's so little on offer. If you're looking at the shares outstanding was like 10 million that could actually be traded, and then of those, I would say half were locked up by management. So really, you're playing with a few million shares, and so if anyone was trying to get in, it was difficult, and that's why the share price bounced around so much. So hopefully now, that you're seeing a bit of churn, that will find a nice base here, and people will start accumulating in advance of our summer program and summer results. And it helps being a $14 million explorer and being right next door to 5 million ounces. That can't be denied. So it's on us now to do the best exploration work we can, and try to find something that points towards something significant on the project that's analogous to our neighbors. And we'll see what the share price does as we go from there.
That's a really great summary. Normally at the end, I ask somebody to summarize that and give us the highlights, but I think you did a really succinct job right there. So yeah, thank you. And full disclosure, Adelaide Capital did participate on the current financing for a small amount. We haven't sold, and we intend to be adding over the coming days. So where there's opportunistic selling, there's also opportunistic buying, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for coming back to give us an update. Thank you to everyone for participating, and looking forward to the next results and the samples in the upcoming drill program. So good luck. See what the truth machine brings you this time.
Yeah, can't wait to see what the terrible truth machine delivers. It's always fun. You can't be afraid to drill. So that's all part of the game.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for participating. Have a great afternoon.